It's a grey and cloudy morning here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, but never mind. We are here, your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily. Welcome to the program. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. It's 26 degrees here in Lagos at this time. Could be hotter, could be cooler as the day unfolds. Welcome to the show. Today is the 7th day in the month of July, 2025.
Well, at least the weather is doing what it ought to do. Everyone knows it's the rainy season, and so you can expect gray and cloudiness from time to time. But on this program, we like to track the sunshine for you. Not just the sunshine, sometimes the heat. And we know that the political atmosphere is gradually heating up. And we've been seeing some of the big wigs in recent times who recently gathered to form a coalition, a grand coalition, they say, against the All Progressives Congress, you know, speaking and bearing their minds on what they hope that the coalition will achieve. One of them was on a sister program yesterday. He was the presidential candidate in the 2023 elections, garnering as much as 6.1 million votes. And there have been speculation as to whether or not he will be running as the presidential candidate or as vice presidential candidate to the candidate of the PDP in the last elections as well, who he had run as a vice presidential candidate to in 2019. But Mr. Peter Obi left no one in doubt that he is in this race or he's in that party going to be joining them, even though he's still in the Labour Party as of yesterday, according to what he said, that he will be running for president, not vice president. But he still says, let us wait as developments unfold. He also had quite a number of things to say about the ruling party, strong criticism against how the president has run his affairs as president, saying that they lack compassion. So in addition to all the other 3 C's that they've always referred to, character, competence, and capacity, he's now added an extra C, which is that of compassion. You know, talking about how they've handled the flooding in Mokwa, the numerous security challenges that the country has been facing. If you missed that particular interview, you can catch up on our YouTube channel, channelstv.com. But in the meantime, here's a snippet of what he had to say.
150 billion to buy a jet when 80% of our primary health care centers are not functioning.
Even as against security protocols.
Which security?
You've been a governor, you know
what
it means.
No, what do you mean security? That's what they tell. That's nonsense they tell. I was a governor for my first 4 years. I drove 406. For the rest of it, I didn't drive bulletproof cars. Nobody's trying to kill you. You're doing the right thing. That's not governance. The country needs governance. I said it and I put it in capital. I don't need a day more than 4 years. In fact, the day
and
before,
you fix Nigeria in those 4 years.
It's not fair. I will show the direction of good governance.
You've been a 2-time governor. Why do you want to...
In 2 years, there had been maximum damage. That shows 3 years can change it in good direction.
Well, Mokwe Radley put it, if you really need to hear what, Mr. Peter Obi has to say, that link is right there on our YouTube page, you know. And that's just one of a number of other conversations we're going to be having this morning with our guests when we bring him on. One other issue, pretty much we'll be tracking trending issues, particularly over the past 1 week or thereabout, issues that have trended, the ones that you have been interested in, the ones that you have not been interested in, we'll be looking at some of them. One of those other issues is the Natasha-Senate recall update. Excuse me, of course, we know that the court has spoken, made a case. So there is also the contention of whether this was a victory for one party or the other, or whether it was a balance. Then there's the question of, okay, the court has said that the Senate should recall or reinstate Senator Apoti-Oduaghan, but whether or not the other part of the judgment, that is that the plaintiff should pay 5 million naira and tender apology publish an apology in 2 daily, national daily papers, whether that is a condition precedent for the recall or the reinstatement. I guess that's another thing, many people are waiting to see. The CTC is not out yet. Perhaps that is one of the reasons that conversation is on. And then we would also be looking at that whole debate of the constitutional review all over again. Okay, so over the weekend, I think it was sometime last week, Friday, maybe Thursday or Friday, the National Assembly was in Enugu State, I believe, to have some kind of conversation around the constitutional review. And we now hear that there is a calendar of sorts. Okay, this is going to happen in the north, that is going to happen in the south, and while in the north, it will take place in this place and in that place, and all of those things, those conversations have been ongoing. And there is a call out there to you, Nigerian, be a part of the process, because that's the whole idea of taking the constitutional review process all over the nation, so that it can come closer to you, as close as they can make it. But then at the end of the day, there's also the responsibility of the state houses of assembly. If any clause is going to be changed in the Constitution of the Federal Republic that starts with "we the people," then the people, represented by the members of the state houses of assembly, must be involved and must give their pass. At least 2/3 of the state houses of assembly in the country must sign off on every clause that must change in the National Assembly. Believe me, one main part of it that I'm waiting for is how the judgment of the Supreme Court of July last year about the local government autonomy, financial and administrative autonomy, will be infused or represented in the Constitution now. Currently, what we have in the Constitution is one that says that the federal government puts money in a particular till, and then the State House of Assembly puts some money there onward to the local governments. And then whether or not that is happening, that's another conversation. Well, that's one other issue, among others, that I'll be looking at this morning on the program. So, Markwe, over to you.
Well, without further ado, I'm going to be introducing our guest this morning, Dr. Oke Ikechukwu is Executive Director of Development Specs Academy, and we'll be looking at developing stories with him this morning. This is one of them. Ayo has mentioned quite a few others, but let's see how much time will let us take. Let's start with the first one. You saw that, I don't know if you watched the entirety of the interview with former governor and presidential candidate Peter Obi yesterday on our sister program, Sunday Politics, and some of the highlights of what he said. First, for a number of people, is that he's hoping to run in the 2027 elections as a presidential candidate, hoping to do a single year, a single term of 4 years. How correctly would you say he's reading the situation in the country?
Well, I would think if he could take the trouble to go and join a coalition, he's responding to the general perception that things are bad, that they will want to change the government, and so that's the reason why all of them came together. But in that coming together, there are several things on the table, and I believe I've commented on this more than once before, namely, for the coalition or opposition leaders to know what they are up against. They are dealing with a man and a party that knows how to achieve results, sometimes modify or bend the rules, and strategically knock out everybody. So he's reading it correctly, but where I am a little concerned is that if you're forming a coalition to remove this government, that coalition needs to come out with something people can measure. The coalition will need to come out with a candidate, with a vice presidential candidate, and then programs. So if all members, and it's very good that Peter Obi has come out to state his own leanings in this regard. But imagine that another candidate also, potential candidate also gets up to say, I'm contesting. A third one comes up, a fourth one comes up. It will clearly indicate that there's no coalition. So whereas Peter Obi's statements are reassuring, because he's spoken of 4-year term, and he's correct in saying that he can be trusted. He has that record and reputation. And if he's the one to run for the coalition, I think the APC should be justifiably concerned. But my issue here is quite simple. That statement should come or should have come from the coalition itself.
How do you mean?
This is a coalition. Mark gets up to announce that she's contesting, and I get up to announce that I'm contesting. What should have happened inside the House is thrown open to the public. That's the kind of thing we'll say when we're in a meeting, in a table inside the room, so that after we've quarreled about that, one person comes out in front of the corridor to say, well, this is the person contesting. So that's something they should watch out for.
Yeah, but
it's not looking good at
we
the
remember
moment.
how the APC managed their own merger of sorts and the primaries which they had. And I think that, perhaps at the heart of the statement that he's made is the issue, is unspoken, but is the issue of zoning, how it usually rotates between north and south. And some people will say it's still very heavily dependent on how the ADC decides to zone,
the presidency.
Exactly.
And vice presidency and party chairman. I agree completely with you, and that's actually the point I'm making. Let that zoning take place, then address us Nigerians. Not each candidate addressing us. That's a strategic, that's a strategic perspective they must need to maintain. Already they are up against a very, very domineering federal government and political party. And all you don't need to do anything to arm them, to take you on.
I wanted to ask you, how critical is that statement?
That?
How critical is their statement on zoning, to their success?
It is very critical because that's also the major stakeholders in all the zones. They are not concerned really, if we must be honest, about Nigeria. They are concerned about how their group interests will be serviced. So you announce that there's a zoning. Remember, that's what cost, in my perspective, that's what cost Jonathan the presidency. They said, okay, this is zoned to the north. Our man has passed. You've done 4 years after his own, and you need to return it. He wanted to go for another 4 years. Remember that 5 governors exited the party. What it tells you, and they left, and Jonathan lost by 2 million votes. Now, imagine, that means each governor produced less than 500 million extra votes. That election was there for Jonathan to win. The PDP was a bit lousy about it, but the point I'm making being, if 4 governors could exit a party just from the perception that this is not coming to our zone, it means that one of the most critical factors to consider is the zoning thing. And in this regard, the Southeast has, if you like, the first asking opportunity, having been thoroughly dealt with over the years, and the dealing with by the PDP was the most painful, because indeed, if you want to ask anything, the PDP is where it is today, partly because or largely because of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He contested when, if you were to take the gentleman's agreement, should have been the Southeast. He contested when he came from outside, after having decamped to another party, to get the candidate, which annoyed people like Lamido and co. out of the party. So yes, it's a very critical factor. Where are you zoning it to? That's not enough. What are the terms you give the other zones for them to say, okay, we will allow it in this zone? That conversation needs to take place.
So we'll see how developments in the ADC go. However, there's also the side of how they're going to be managing their membership, because we understand people are still in their legacy political parties and say, I'm still a member of this.
Even they're asking Peter to resign. But you see, when you look at the template the APC, the AD, what do you call ACN, used to form the coalition with the CPC, both were parties that had a lot of ground support. Were in regular contact with their people, and there was, if you like, shared determination. I'm not sure that's the case in all these other parties, because if you look at all of them, they have very impressive internal issues. PDP is in total disarray, unable to contain Wike. Atiku himself unable to contain the party. Labour Party has, as we speak, 2 contending chairmen. There might be a third one coming up, and one has already issued Peter an ultimatum. So that advantage that the other people used to remove PDP doesn't quite exist, but it can be formed. If you say, this is our candidate, this is our vice presidential candidate, and now all your co-coalition people from other zones go to tell their people why you should be the candidate, then it would work.
Well, let us see how, matters eventually unfold. But, this other matter came up. It's been on for a while. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan versus the Senate. Justice Binta Nyako ruled on Friday on this particular matter. However, there's there's some ambiguities of some sort. There is the lack of clarity, and the Senate says it is going to wait for the certified true copy to be delivered before they, take any move. However, Senator Natasha says she will be resuming on Tuesday. Do you think that this is a recipe for conflict?
There is also an additional statement I think I picked up in the media that the Senate is giving conditions to Natasha. Something she needs to either apologize or something before resuming.
Yeah, so I think that was a part of the judgment, but there is a lack of clarity on that because people were not sure whether, because she was fined for contempt of court. Now, it was not clear whether the apology was to the court or whether it's to the Senate.
Okay. In that case, that should be clarified. If Natasha wants to operate following and carry the matter with due personal dignity, she should seek that clarification and act on it. If he's saying, I'm going to resume, that means she has an interpretation of the apology and she must have acted on it. So if she's acted on the understanding that the apology is to the court, assuming she has written an apology to the court, she can resume. If she then resumes and somebody says, oh, no, you see, you were to apologize to the Senate, then that's a different matter. But the statements on the side, if you like, about, she must first apologize to the Senate, these are the conditions for her to return. My understanding of the separation of powers is that it is not within the purview of the National Assembly to question the decision of the court in terms of, as that arm of government that determines the rightness or wrongness of anything, including provisions of the Constitution. I am not aware that the court is making a conditional ruling or a condition dependent on its acceptability by the Senate. Those are clear.
Well, tomorrow is not too far away. It's 24 hours. It's 24 hours away. We'll see what happens, especially given some of the, confusion that the judgment. Sometimes you say these things are clear, but,
not always.
But, sometimes when all of the judgments is not read in court, it then can create these problems. Let's look at this issue of constitutional amendment. And it would, when I saw last week, the Senate still going around to, take the views of Nigerians, some of the things that still came up high on the list, I think they were in the northeast or so of the country, is state creation. And I'm wondering, how is that a priority of where we currently are? Are you a little underwhelmed by with some of the agenda that has been set with regards to what we're bringing up for constitutional amendment?
Not particularly. You see, the Nigerian state remains what it is. The controversies are real, but most of it is around resource sharing, not production. Remember that Jonathan set up a committee headed by, I think, Justice, he's late now. The objective and task of that committee was to study all conferences we've had in Nigeria, all major decisions and resolutions arising from both regional and national conferences and meetings and consultations and retreats, and extract from them sound recommendations that have not been implemented and then send them as executive bill to the National Assembly. They were in the process of it when the House started, I think, under Tambuwal to do the same thing. Later, there was a National Assembly. The issues on the table, I think, are fairly simple and straightforward. The provisions of the Constitution as it is today, as they exist today, make it impossible for anybody to create an extra state, except by conspiracy. If you want a state, you say you want a state. You take it to the National Assembly. The National Assembly sends you back to your people to meet and agree that that's what you want. You come back again. They then take it around the state, the federation, for 2/3 of the state assemblies to endorse it. It's not going to happen. Except there is what I would always call Conspiracy of Nigeria's Old Boys Association, where they agree in the first place, okay, I think they deserve a state there. Let's tell the assemblies to approve it. That's the only way more states can be created. But over and above all of this, we must ask the question, why do you create states? Some speak of marginalization. There is a lot of marginalization. But what will actually take away marginalization is not necessarily the creation of states, because you have states where monolithic, homogeneous, and they are fighting, is good leadership and good governance. So when you say marginalization, remember, we led to 3 regions, a 4th region. Now we had 19, we had 21, now we have 36 states. If we continue, there will be a day that you will find a state of the federation called Oke Ikechukwu. Everybody walking on the road will be a state.
Governing
himself and reading his own budget.
We're already our local government. But let's go to Ayo. I know he has one quick question for you, Ayo.
Well, thank you, Malkwe. Well, Dr. Kichu, just one quick question on one of the issues that you raised, the very, very first one, actually, where you said, and I quote, that Mr. Peter Obi was responding to the general perception that things are bad. And I picked on that word perception, that things are bad. Is it a perception, or is it the reality, even though we say a perception is reality?
Oh, it is a reality. I mean, things are bad in several respects, but recognizing that things are bad is not the same thing as a solution. You, Ayo, me here, every Nigerian is having it rough, irrespective of party, irrespective of religion, irrespective of ethnic roots. So yeah, all is not well at all on several fronts, and at different levels.
Okay.
Also across to the elite in terms of security, more of poverty to the poor. So yes, things are bad. Well, and the coalition is saying we want to change things for the better. And what I'm asking that coalition to do is to tell us who is standing forth in their name, not each of them coming to speak. Secondly, what is it you want to do about specific things in the federation? And thirdly, do not from the beginning shoot yourself in the foot by having individual members of the coalition or individual groups within the coalition to be making independent statements. It will not go well for them. Let them meet, resolve a lot of things, come out with an ideological trajectory, come out with a candidate, come out with solutions. Describe their templates for integrating the regions into part ownership or joint ownership of the coalition, and then that will work. They will over time they have a certain advantage, which is the North is at the moment not happy, and for various reasons. So these are things they need to put together properly. Otherwise,
I guess it's over time.
Will be talking about becoming president.
Yeah.
And if that happens, the coalition will crash when the public now begins to do detailed assessment of the respective of the profile of the respective individuals over the years. Like I've said before, I see a lot of them on the table, coalition table, but I'm not quite sure what they're bringing to the coalition.
You know, one of the things that excites me, my apologies, my sincere apologies, Prof. One of the things that's a little befuddling is whether or not, something that you also said, whether or not the coalition is not broken from the start when each one of them is already making those comments. One of those people in the coalition is Mr. Rotimi Amechi, who, of course, you all know, has been at variance with a former governor as well of Rivers State as himself, Nyesom Wike. And of course, you've been seeing the spat between the two of them over time, even until as close as the last few days of the week gone by. What do you make of all of that spat? You know, the party is working, the party is not working, making comments about each other, whether or not there is peace in Rivers State and all those things. What do you make of all of that, and how helpful do you see that those feedback coming from both of them, given that they are national leaders that many people look at?
Well, you have what you call, I think it's lawyers who call it, says by the way, pedestrian debate. People can quarrel all they like, that's a different matter. You say they are national leaders, yes, to the extent that they've held positions at the national level, we can describe them as national leaders by Nigerian standards of today. If you're going to mention certain names, if you want to mention all the leaders you know from the southeast or from the north, or from the south or middle belt, will you include their names? So let's be careful about how we use national leaders. At the moment, these are individuals who have held positions at state and national levels. They are vocal. In terms of what they represent, there might be questions to ask. But now, talking about Wike and Amechi specifically, the biggest mistake they will make is to assume that Wike doesn't matter. He has shown them that he matters. And between him and Amechi, I don't know which of them has greater capacity for engagement. From my observation, and here, it may be right or wrong, Wike has shown the capacity for robust, if you like, engagement without apologies, in terms of comparative strength in terms of national visibility, even without Wike becoming minister. I suspect that Wike has a stronger profile in terms of capacity for engagement, for robust engagement, for bluntness, and sometimes for deliberate mischief. So let the talking go on. It's part of what happens in politics. But as for Mechi becoming the candidate of the party, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a legitimate aspiration. As to whether he will emerge victorious in that engagement, my question would be, has anybody taken time to audit his profile and perception across the nation to be convinced that he should be a vice presidential candidate, not to talk of being a presidential candidate? These are matters they should weigh very carefully.
So let me just quickly take you up on this one. It's away from politics now, but it's also a national matter. Over the weekend, the Nigerian Army celebrated 162 years of its own existence. Clearly, the landscape is changing with regards to security challenges and what the, the future of warfare looks like for for armies in general across the world. In our own situation, we know that our challenges are peculiar, more internal than external. The president is saying, you have my mandate to take out everything that should not be, rooted in this country. What are your thoughts as the Nigerian army, marches forward to its 163rd year as a standing army?
The first thing is for the government and for all of us as citizens to acknowledge that the army is overstretched. Because of the level of insecurity, the army is forced to do police work, among other things. That's number one. Number two is that personnel are under pressure, their normal lives disrupted. Yes, they're in the army, they chose to go into the army, but the fact is that there are also conditions that make it a viable profession the way it is all over the world. So to that extent, yes, they're overstretched, they're doing their best. In addition to all of this, the army is also, while fighting the war, is engaging in programs that develop their people to improve both their profile and public performance and personal lives. If like this year's Army Day, the keynote engagement was on the soldier first. Not just, I'm an officer, no, the soldier who goes out there. Are there specific measures we need to take to make them better, make them more efficient, make their lives better? The answer is yes. Is the army doing it now? Yes, they're doing it now. And finally on that, it's variegated. It's really something on which there needs to be a wide national conversation. You will recall also that there was a Chief of Army Staff literary competition covering all levels of education where entries were taken and the people are assessed. I was Chief Assessor for that program. The winners came from all over the country, command schools, private schools, public schools, and the awards were given to them in various regions, with some of them coming to the federal to have their hands shaken by the Chief of Army Staff. The issue is this. Military-civil relations have been improving, but the more interesting thing is that you have this competition where everybody not only takes part, but feels involved. It makes more and more people realize that the army is a profession, that the soldier before he wears uniform is a civilian, and invariably a citizen. So that leveling of perceptions is one of the advantages. And so for this year's Army Day, a cocktail of things, professional and strictly combat issues, military-civil relation issues, capacity building within the military, and the profile of the army as a fighting force in the 21st century world with totally new approaches. Seeing that whole thing, it is reassuring because what it means, three things to be taken on the table. It means that the army leadership, the military leadership of the Nigerian army is totally sensitive to what's going on in the world, is aware of the cost challenges. If, for instance, you hear the army has been allocated 100 billion, wonderful. But a particular kind of military hardware, one piece of it costs 900 and something million. So you're just getting and when you look at those figures, you say, goodness me, where is our money? Again, when you also look at the amount too, you don't take time to find out how much of it was eventually released. But I get these are conversations for another day.
Indeed, Dr. Okechukwu. Well, we have to thank you so much for coming on the program this morning, and certainly we'll be following with you developing matters as they evolve. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Dr. Okechukwu is Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you so much once more.
Thank you.
Well, we take a break now. When we come back, we will be talking about electricity and how to get more Nigerians get